Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and discover exactly how your body takes a complex meal and transforms it into the simple, raw, cellular energy that literally keeps you alive. I mean, have you ever actually stopped to think about what happens after you take a bite of your favorite food? It is a remarkably highly orchestrated sequence of events, and it all happens completely behind the scenes.
It's a fundamental problem that every living organism on Earth faces. The food we eat, whether it's a giant slice of pizza or a leafy green salad, it obviously contains the energy we need. But that energy is locked up in a highly complex form. So how does the body unlock it? Well, that elegant biological solution is exactly what we're going to explore today. We're going to look at the mechanical and chemical machinery that systematically dismantles your dinner.
Here is our roadmap for the journey today. We'll cover the digestive system setup, the mouth and stomach, the small intestine laboratory, absorbing nutrients, and finally, disorders and malnutrition.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the digestive system setup. If we look at the fundamental framework of our gastrointestinal tract, here is the absolutely crucial point. The bio-macromolecules in our food, the large proteins, the complex carbs, those heavy fats, they just cannot be used by our body in their original form. They literally have to be broken down. That is the true core definition of digestion, converting these complex substances into simple, absorbable forms. And the body attacks this problem using a 1-2 punch: mechanical crushing and biochemical dismantling.
So, this whole journey starts mechanically, right? First up is mastication, which is really just the fancy scientific term for chewing your food and mixing it with saliva into a soft, mushy ball called a bolus. Then comes deglutition, or swallowing, which pushes that bolus right into your pharynx. And from that point on, it is totally out of your conscious control. Your body goes on autopilot. The food travels down a thin, long tube called the esophagus, driven by these amazing involuntary muscular waves known as peristalsis.
Moving right along to Section 2, the mouth and stomach.
Now you might think chemical digestion is strictly a stomach thing, right? Actually, scratch that. It starts right in your mouth. As you're mechanically chewing, your salivary glands are releasing an enzyme called salivary amylase. Operating at this perfect optimum pH of 6.8, this enzyme acts like a pair of chemical scissors, snipping apart complex carbohydrates before you even swallow. In fact, roughly 30% of the starch you eat is broken down into a simpler sugar called maltose right there in your mouth. No way, right?
So after passing the gastroesophageal sphincter, your food drops into the stomach. This J-shaped muscular bag has 4 main regions. You've got the cardiac portion at the entrance, the fundic region, the main central body, and finally, the pyloric portion that leads out. Your food is a guest here for a solid 4 to 5 hours, just getting aggressively churned by the muscular walls into a thick, highly acidic paste that we call chyme.
But honestly, it's the chemical environment of the stomach that is just truly astonishing. We're talking about a highly acidic pH of 1.8. To put that number into perspective, that is acidic enough to dissolve a razor blade. This extreme environment is created by the parietal cells in your stomach lining, which pump out highly concentrated hydrochloric acid.
So why on earth would our bodies produce such a dangerous, harsh acid? Well, it's absolutely crucial. The stomach secretes this inactive proenzyme called pepsinogen. When that pepsinogen hits that 1.8 pH hydrochloric acid, boom, it transforms into active pepsin. Pepsin is a powerful proteolytic enzyme that relentlessly cuts large proteins down into smaller peptides. But wait, if it's that strong, why doesn't this acid and protein digesting combo just digest the stomach itself? It's a great question. The body's ingenious solution is a thick layer of mucus and bicarbonates that continuously lubricates and protects your delicate stomach lining from being destroyed by its own juices.
Let's shift gears to Section 3, the small intestines laboratory.
Leaving the extreme hostile environment of the stomach, the acidic chyme gets pushed through the pyloric sphincter and finally enters the small intestine. But the small intestine doesn't do all this heavy lifting alone. It gets crucial chemical deliveries. Secretions from your liver, which are stored in the gallbladder, and digestive juices from the pancreas all mixed together. They literally pour right into the duodenum, which is that first C-shaped section of the small intestine, through a combined channel called the common hepatopancreatic duct.
And what a delivery it is. It's a massive chemical arsenal. First, you've got bile from the liver. Now, bile actually contains no enzymes at all. Instead, it acts a lot like a biological dish soap, emulsifying large, stubborn clumps of fat into tiny, manageable droplets called micelles. Alongside the bile is pancreatic juice, which is highly alkaline, raising the pH to a much friendlier 7.8. This juice brings a whole suite of specialized enzymes to the party: trypsin and chymotrypsin to further shatter proteins, amylases to obliterate remaining carbs, lipases to tear apart fats, and nucleases to break down the actual DNA of the food you ate. Finally, the intestinal walls secrete their own juice, succus entericus, which handles the ultimate final disassembly of our food into basic, single-molecular units.
Which brings us to the payoff in Section 4, absorbing the nutrients.
Once the food is fully dismantled, it's finally time for absorption. When you map it out, your mouth and large intestine actually handle very little of this, mostly just some drugs, water, and basic minerals. The stomach takes in a bit of water, simple sugars, and alcohol, but the undisputed MVP of absorption, the small intestine. Because of its massive internal surface area, created by literally millions of microscopic finger-like projections called villi and microvilli, the small intestine is where all your major fuel, your glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, and glycerol are pulled out of the tract and transferred directly into your bloodstream.
But fats. Fats present a really unique logistical challenge. Because fatty acids and glycerol are totally insoluble in water, they can't just be absorbed directly into the watery blood like sugars can. They just won't mix. So they require a very special delivery system. After bile breaks them into those small droplets called micelles, they enter the intestinal cells and are literally repackaged into tiny protein-coated fat globules called chylomicrons. And because these chylomicrons are simply too large to squeeze into blood capillaries, they take a detour. They are absorbed into specialized lymphatic vessels called lacteals located right inside the villi. The lymphatic system then safely transports them before eventually dropping them into the bloodstream.
Finally, let's look at what happens when things go wrong in Section 5, digestive disorders and malnutrition.
What happens when this complex, finely tuned system lacks the raw nutritional materials it desperately needs to function? Widespread protein energy malnutrition, or PEM, can occur. This manifests in really devastating conditions, particularly in developing nations during times of crisis. Biologically, there is a distinct difference between the two main types. Marasmus is caused by a simultaneous deficiency of both proteins and total calories. It typically affects infants under 1 year old, leading to severely stunted growth and extreme emaciation. On the flip side, kwashiorkor is a severe protein deficiency unaccompanied by a calorie deficiency. This often happens to children over 1 year old on a diet that might be high in calories but severely lacks protein. While muscle wasting still happens, some fat remains, and the critical lack of protein in the blood causes severe fluid imbalances, resulting in extensive edema or widespread swelling of the body.
On a more relatable, day-to-day level, we've all likely experienced ailments that disrupt either the chemical balance or the physical transit time of our digestive tract. A malfunctioning liver can fail to process bile properly, causing yellow pigments to deposit in the skin and eyes, a condition we know as jaundice. Neural reflexes in the medulla can forcefully eject stomach contents as vomiting. Disrupted bowel movements can cause the rapid transit of diarrhea, which severely reduces your body's ability to absorb food, or conversely, the delayed transit of constipation. Even everyday things like anxiety, a mild bacterial bug, or simply overeating spicy foods can throw off our enzyme secretions and lead to painful indigestion.
Understanding all of these moving parts, the mechanical mashing, the extreme acidic environments, the massive chemical arsenal, and those intricate absorption networks, it really leaves you in awe of your own biological machinery. Next time you sit down for a meal, just consider this. Your body is about to initiate millions of microscopic, perfectly timed chemical reactions completely on autopilot just to keep you alive. So the question is, are you giving this incredible engine the premium fuel it deserves?